XRP New Liquidity Coming in. Folks, we are not going anywhere. In tonight's analysis, this is what you really need to get tapped in on, is throwing away that 4-year cycle understanding of how the crypto markets work and focusing now on the liquidity and business cycle. It's been the liquidity and business cycle all along. And I've been talking about this through this year, is that you can go back on this liquidity cycle going back decades. And what we're going to show you in tonight's update briefly is the business cycle, the PMI index, and the correlation that we have with Bitcoin and the cryptocurrency market, including XRP, and why we can sit here and be so firm in our conviction that the bull run for XRP is about to return. For other good utility cryptocurrencies, it'll be back. This is not just XRP and new liquidity coming into XRP alone. This is coming back into our cryptocurrency space, but 99% of cryptos I do believe will go away or become irrelevant, just like Brad Garlinghouse has said. And so in tonight's update, we're going to break this down along with some of the most recent developments in the cryptocurrency space. But this is so important for everybody to understand, for new folks coming in, what really drives these markets. And for even seasoned folks that have been in crypto for quite some time and you're wondering what happened to our 2025 bull run, where is it at? Why didn't it come? Why did we fall short? Today's update will break that down. And I actually recorded an in-depth breakdown of this topic that's going to be dropping on my YouTube channel in the next couple days. Tomorrow, I'm actually going to be airing the interview with Sal Gaberte from 2Cream. And he is the CEO and founder of that company, which brought the first XRP ETF live. That's the 2XRP ticker, the double XRP exposure, basically a 2X long XRP ETF. That went live April 6th of this year. And it was the first ETF to get any sort of exposure to XRP, and first of many that have come about this year. And it was just so great to get his insight from an ETF issuer perspective, somebody who's been on Wall Street for decades and a commodities trader for decades. And he is so bullish on Ripple and XRP. And I think you guys are going to love that video. That'll be dropping tomorrow morning at 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. Okay? Now, of course, all eyes on Japan. We have the big interest rate decision coming up. That will be delivered to us Thursday evening, between 10 and 11 Eastern Standard Time. And this is so pivotal because it's unwinding this carry trade that goes back decades. And we're talking about tens of trillions of dollars worth of exposure through these trades, through this main mechanism being taking out cheap debt in the Japanese yen and then going to speculate, invest, and gamble somewhere else. This is part of a bigger global margin call that's underway. And the problem that we face is that interest rates have not come down in America. When you look at why is our crypto market falling short here in 2025, it's because the liquidity has been tight all year. Our business cycle has been tight and in contraction since January of 2025. And so in this update, you're going to be equipped with the real data, the real information to actually understand this market, not just narratives, real data, real facts, real analysis, and it allows you to put together a real plan. Now, if you appreciate what we do here, please help us out by liking our content, smack that thumbs up for me, help us out by sharing it out far and wide, and all of our community resources are available at zachrector.com. I love doing this every single day for this community. We do the live show every Tuesday, Thursday. Make sure you hit that notification bell so you don't miss any of our updates. And without further ado, let's get right on into it, folks. Let's run it up. Thank you so much for stopping by. Today, we get the Bureau of Labor Statistics releasing another surprising employment situation report. The August 2025 non-farm payrolls was revised down by 4,000. September 2025 non-farm payrolls revised down by, it looks like from 119,000 to 108,000. And then for October 2025, we lost 105,000 non-farm payrolls. That's the first estimate. And then for November, they're saying that we added 64,000 non-farm payroll. When you dig in, the devil's in the details. It's a lot of part-time. And of course, with the government shutdown and a lot of bureaucrats being laid off, which might be a little healthy, just like we are a fan of the cleansing that's taking place in the cryptocurrency space. I think many of us in this community, and speaking as an American, appreciate the cleansing that's taking place with what I call the bureaucracy beast. And so that's starting to show up in some of the job numbers as well, too. But when we get into it, folks, we're at a 4.6% unemployment rate, the highest reading this year. And this is from Trueflation. And they say, interestingly, the October non-farm payrolls, which had a canceled release and were then estimated and reported now at negative 105,000, were rather buried in the current BLS report. So they were trying to hide it. Also worth noting that all of the BLS data, might as well call it the BS data, whether missing, present, or the composite estimates, are still based on household surveys of what people report to surveyors. That's how this is collected. That's why a lot of people like to look at the ADP employment report, which is an actual payroll company, the largest payroll company in the United States, versus looking at this data. But this is not actual data from employers or unemployment centers. Meanwhile, the Trueflation Employment Index, which aggregates 15 different data sources, showed a loss of 24,000 jobs in August, gain of 16,000 in September, a gain of 64,000 in October, and a loss of 26,000 in November. All of this to say, the Fed is now realizing, right? They're getting that feedback, and they're realizing, maybe they did this on purpose, right? Some folks are making that case, and I would tend to agree, that they kept liquidity tight. They kept those interest rates higher. And we know, it's just a data point that's a fact, they raised rates at the fastest pace in history. They effectively rug pulled America. They delivered a little rate cut there before the election came in November 2024, but that was too late. And then they decided to do a pause as soon as Trump came in for the first half this year. Now, they've delivered 3 rate cuts, but like we said, and we've been explaining this the whole time, the bond market is giving the Fed a big middle finger, just flipping them the bird. And the yields keep going up here in the United States of America. And at the same time, right, when you look across the Pacific over to Japan, their yields are also climbing. Their central bank is raising rates, and the yields continue to rise with that. And so it's unwinding the Japan carry trade. But then over here in America, all this debt that's coming due, it needs to be restructured, whether it be short-term T-bills that were, we basically got front-loaded from the Biden administration and Janet No-Tell and Yellen. We gave her the nickname. Janet No-Tell and Yellen front-loaded us with a bunch of short-term T-bills, $7 trillion plus, that we're struggling to find buyers for, which is why they passed the Genius Act and they rushed and pushed through the stablecoin legislation, and now they're dragging their feet on the Clarity Act. But they made sure that they got that stablecoin legislation through because they knew it was going to be critical to restoring the U.S. dollar reserve currency status, or at least maintaining it. Now, why does this matter? Jobs. Zach, I want crypto. Pump me up. Give me a 10x. Give me some hopium, Zach. Give me a new narrative about XRP going to the moon, Zach. It's important to understand these fundamentals in the macro that are bringing down crypto currently, but the fundamentals in the macro, in the stimulus, in the QE, in the regulations, and that clarity that's coming that is actually going to make XRP and these markets pump on the other side, right? This jobs numbers that we're getting in here, this unemployment rate, the highest reading of 2025, is all ammunition and more of a case for the Fed to continue cutting rates and to go from Treasury, reserve management to full-blown QE. And so this explains where we're going in 2026. Gold and silver have already been sending the signal. We take a look at it right here. Gold up to $4,300 per ounce, and silver, I got to refresh this because that's wrong. Silver popped up above $65 per ounce. Look at that sucker. $66 per ounce as we record the update here tonight, folks. New all-time high for silver, just absolutely smashing to new all-time highs. And the best part about this is that they called us insane for going all in, or relatively speaking, all in XRP and silver. And look how well that's played out. Personally, I'm over 90% XRP. That's not including my XRP long. If you added my XRP long, my portfolio comprised of about 95% XRP exposure long through my spot position and my XRP long. And then the position that I have in silver doing very well. My only regret is not buying more silver as we see this thing blasting up to $66 per ounce, which is now above a barrel of oil, believe it or not. U.S. oil prices fall to $55 per barrel, now at their lowest level since February of 2021. President Trump continues to call for gas prices to fall to $2 per gallon. So here we are, 55. In fact, I'll refresh it. We're back up to about 56, it looks like, on this chart right here. Crude oil, just refreshing it on Market Watch. Up to about $56. But I mean, this thing has just bled out all year. And we'll continue to be watching these commodities, the classic commodities like gold, silver, and oil, and then the new commodities like XRP. Getting into some broader crypto news real quick. Marshall Islands has launched the first on-chain universal basic income. The initiative is powered by the Stellar blockchain. So Stellar showing up. The first UBI initiative on chain, Stellar, sneaky little Stellar, Jed, we call him sneaky little Jed. And I told my Discord group, I shared this with them, and I said, you guys better be on your best behavior so you get that UBI check, okay? Some of you guys are on the list. You won't be receiving the UBI. You're too outspoken. You go against the agenda. You know what I'm talking about. You troublemakers out there, no UBI check for you. Further adoption, though, of cryptocurrency technology, Stellar in their initiatives across the country, the countries over in Africa, Latin America. We continue to see Stellar boots on the ground and getting real partnerships over there. And so I remain pretty bullish on that project. I wanted to address Axelar, okay? What the heck, man? I mean, I couldn't have seen that. Nobody saw this coming. I loaded up on Axelar over the weekend. The ticker's AXL. I was very bullish, and they had great fundamentals. I mean, in my coin review, they only have one ETF from Canary that's been filed. No digital asset treasury companies, but they do have institutional adoption. They had a bunch of partnerships with other blockchains. The tokenomics were actually pretty good. No big token release until September of 2026. And I'm looking at my targets on the chart and I'm thinking, wow, this thing doesn't even need to go back to its all-time high. And we're going to run this sucker up. We're going to make all sorts of money. And so I went into Axelar heavy this weekend. I bought Axelar yesterday because I market bought over the weekend. And then I placed a limit order to buy at 12 cents right before we see the news that the core team is now leaving to go work at Circle. They basically have been acquired by Circle, the dev team. And we started to see more of this in the cryptocurrency space where developer teams basically use the token, use the project, they drum up a bunch of hype, they get VC money coming in, they get a bunch of retail to pump it up and bring in liquidity, and then they say, oh, we're done here. Our work's finished. Here you go. You can keep the token as a governance token. Good luck, God bless, and they set sail. Whether, they just take the money and run, or in this case, they've been acquired by Circle, the core developer team. And so there's a lot of FUD that's going around right now, rightfully so, right? Fear, uncertainty, doubt, because nobody has any certainty about really what's going to happen here now with the project. Now, I'm feeling crappy because obviously I went in heavy to this thing and thought, wow, we really had a nice find right here, only to find out that this is taking place. But I do want to share an alternative perspective, which is from this gentleman right here, Wei Dai, probably butchering his name, but he's a research partner here, PhD, research and investing for the future of crypto. And he says he's seen a lot of FUD about the Circle Axelar deal. My 2 cents as an independent observer. First, the announcement consists of 2 parts. Circle acquired the original developer company of Axelar, Interop Labs. Common Prefix is now leading Axelar Foundation and DevCo. And I should note that I've already reached out to that team at Common Prefix, and I'm trying to get them on my show so that we can get answers about what's going on here. Okay, so I'm still digging to get all of the details. I'm trying to get the new team on my show and hoping that they come on, provide some answers, some clarity. Once again, in this ecosystem over there at Axelar, it wasn't just this one core development team working on it, but they obviously were spearheading it, right? This would be equivalent to Ripple, and saying, hey, we're done here. We're moving on. We've been acquired by Circle, and Ripple taking all of their developers and team to go work at Circle. Right? Much bigger than the little team that they had at Interop Labs, but it's the equivalent of the main team leaving. And so, yes, Circle's M&A move is definitely great for Circle, but the bigger and more nuanced announcement, which most have dismissed, is actually the second one. At first glance, it looks like the Axelar team has quote-unquote rugged the network and token holders, but there's another way to see this. Axelar has underperformed in the interoperability market, but a new leadership team is now ready to steer the network with sufficient resources and governance control. Who's the new leadership team? Common Prefix is a crypto research, engineering, and consulting firm founded and led by this gentleman, Dionysius Zindros, with some of the best scientific minds in crypto. They have spun out projects such as, Pod Network, never heard of it, among other contributions to the space. Similar to how stocks are volatile in the short term during company leadership transitions, tokens can be volatile as well during network leadership transitions. Ultimately, it's about whether this new leadership team can steer Axelar to gain more market share. We will definitely have to wait and see, as Common Prefix has a lot planned for 2026 per QT. And this guy says that he has no investment or financial interest in Axelar, Interop Labs, or Common Prefix. I do. I bought a lot of AXO right before this announcement was made. Before this, Axelar was one of the smaller positions in my portfolio. And I was looking, I had a little bit of capital on Caleb and Brown. And I'm looking across all of the coins that I reviewed here recently for my Discord group, going through all the coin review, my spreadsheets. And I came across Axelar. I'm thinking, man, this looks like just a tremendous opportunity. And so I loaded up. This news comes out. I'm still trying to find out all the details. I might have, been exit liquidity. But the alternative perspective that he's sharing right here is that maybe this is what the network needed. People that really didn't have their heart in the project to leave, abandon, and now you get new teams, new developers, new blood in there that's going to spearhead that development. And we've seen this from time to time where, bad things like this happen to a project. It kind of cleanses out, the FUD hits, and then off of that low, you'll see coins just rip. I mean, for crying out loud, people are still buying Luna Classic. And so I'm not saying that Axelar's finished. I'm not saying that it's still a buy. Had I known that this was coming, I obviously wouldn't have bought, because now Axelar's, down. But this is a prime example of, I think, retail getting left in the dust by these teams and these VCs that extract value and then just move on when it's convenient for them. And so I'll follow up with an update on Axelar, but I just wanted to cover that real briefly here in tonight's update. Okay. Now, moving on over to XRP. Okay. Very excited for the smart contract programmability that's coming to the XRP ledger right now. We're doing it right. And there's a clip here that I'm going to play with Crippen Ryder, who's an XRP ledger developer, and Vet, who is on the UNL list. He's another validator, part of the 35 validators that confirm our network. And then Mayuka, who is one of the top engineers at Ripple. And she's going to explain how they're introducing programmability to the XRP ledger. And I'm going to do my best to kind of break this down in simple terms. But this is great for the XRP ledger ecosystem, that we're finally getting this programmability, and we'll be able to expand our DeFi ecosystem. This is a long time coming. Let's run the clip.
Yeah. So smart extensions I think they're a very XRPL way to look at programmability, which is essentially you take our powerful primitives that we all know and love and we already have, and we can add a little bit of programmability on top of that to add some customization ability. Currently, the native features are super useful, super powerful, but if you wanted, and you can do, a lot of things with just the native features, but sometimes there's some little bit that the native features don't quite do what you want them to do. And as a result, you're sort of, you have to figure out some way to work around that. Now this smart extension idea makes that a little easier. There's going to be certain touch points where you can actually add your own customization in the form of WebAssembly code to cover that gap.
And smart escrows is sort of a case of this, right? Because that's a native object on the ledger, right?
Yeah.
That has that WASM module, let's put it that way, attached to it. What is sort of then smart escrow? Is this basically then an escrow that is supercharged with WASM, basically?
Yeah, so you can think of an escrow as a pool of one asset that is essentially locked away, and it has one destination and one origin point, and it's released in like an all or nothing situation. And there's two ways that it can be released. One is time-based. After a certain amount of time, you can release those funds. This is how Ripple's escrows operate. The other is using what's called crypto conditions. I won't get too much into that right now, but we can essentially explain that as you need a password to unlock the escrow. And if you have that password, then you can unlock it whenever. So one thing that this password unlock enables is essentially like off-chain smart contracts. So the example that's listed in the xrpl.org docs is like you have some vendor for your kid's birthday party that you need to pay, but you don't want to pay them before the party in case they screw up or don't show up or something. Instead, and they also need the guarantee that you're going to pay them. So instead, you can have a third party and they can set up this password situation, and then you can put the funds that you owe the birthday party vendor into the escrow. And then once the vendor shows up, the third party can provide the password and release the escrow.
This already kind of...
So I'm going to pause real quick here and just explain. This is allowing the smart escrow unlock to be time released, just like Ripple's escrow. And this is now for other tokens. We've always had escrow for XRP. Now they're adding escrow for other tokens, and then they're adding smart escrows, which is adding a little bit more programmability to it. And so you have the time lock release, like with the escrow. Ripple gets 1 billion every month released to them. Don't listen to anybody that tells you that they dump 1 billion XRP every month. That's absolutely false. In fact, every month in 2025, they returned back 700 million, and then they kept 300 million. So the way that Ripple's been operating, right, is they set up the escrow in 2017, and since that moment going forward, they've had 1 billion released every month. In most months, they've been returning most of it back to the escrow, and then it gets tacked on to the end. So for example, if they have 35 billion in the escrow, they get 1 billion released, and they put it back in, they wouldn't have access to that billion XRP for another 35 billion months, essentially, right? Because it's going all the way to the end of the lineup there on that time lock release. So this is already live for XRP. Now they're extending it out to other tokens. And then like she said there with the password, what this allows you to do is set up third-party vendors so you could do off-chain and bring basically off-chain functions, data, and transactions that you want to take place when something happens off-chain, and then execute it on-chain when the time is right, utilizing that password. So I just try to dumb this down. These people are way smarter than me. I just try to dumb this down and explain why this is going to be so big for our DeFi ecosystem. We have such a lack of developers in the XRP Ledger ecosystem because we haven't had any programmability. All you could do with the XRP Ledger is basically use it for fast, cheap, and efficient payments. And a lot of people love that. I love that. We're lean, we're mean, and we have real purpose, right? This ledger is set up for liquidity first and foremost. But this is what's so important. The way that they're adding the smart contract programmability is done so in a way where it's not going to take away from that. We're not going to negate or take away or slow down our ledger at all. Are we late to this programmability? Are we late to DeFi? Yes. But the good news is that we're going to get all of this done, hopefully by the time the Clarity Act passes, or at least basically as the Clarity Act is passing next year, right? So in essence, all of these DeFi ecosystems, yeah, they have programmability, they have smart contracts, you can do all this cool stuff, but institutions aren't using it at scale because they don't have the rules of the road. You can have all the best features, all the best stuff. These institutions aren't going to use XRP or any other blockchain until they have the rules of the road and they know what they can do with it. Right? Even knowing that XRP is not a security, they know that. So they can sell it on Wall Street. They can put it up as collateral now that the CFTC has allowed that. Right? But as far as building out on the ledger and what can you do with it, that's where the Clarity Act comes in. And I'm telling you that this is a perfect timing, that with the Clarity Act and regulations for DeFi, the XRP ledger is going to have programmability brought to it. So we absolutely love to see it. There's about 2 more minutes left in this clip, and I'm going to let them run this and we'll have them break it down here.
Sounds pretty customizable, I would say. So the difference between the password-based lock and the wasn't-based lock is really that with wasn't, you get even more than this. Like, probably you can basically most of what you want with the password off-chain stuff, and then you have time lock as well. But in case you really want to be on-chain all the time and want to be really customizable with your finish function, this is where WASM, like the WASM module, starts to interact with escrow, right?
So the difficulty with this off-chain smart contracts is you're limited in you have to build a lot of infrastructure often to maintain such a use case. You have to and if you're just using on-chain data, feels a little overkill sometimes. So what this allows you to do is it just integrates it directly on chain, so you don't need that complexity of all this off-chain infrastructure to manage all that. You don't need a server that's constantly listening to the XRPL, determines when this condition is true, and then submits the password. That server also doesn't need to store the password for who knows how long and all of that. So it's just a little easier to work with is what it is.
Would the WASM VM escrow cannibalize the password-based off-chain escrow? Because I can think you can do the same on-chain and just get rid of the password-based escrow.
I mean, I think there's still a lot of use cases for the password-based escrow because you can't do everything on-chain, like the birthday party example, right? Like if your vendor isn't doing everything on-chain, then you still need off-chain data. So maybe this is the best way to do that. Yeah, you could also potentially do so in an Oracle manner and have the smart escrow check for the Oracle status, but maybe it's easier to do it off-chain as a result. Yeah, so...
Yeah, and this is where we can tap into oracles like Flare, Chainlink, and others. I know the Link Marines, they don't like us, or they do like, I don't know. But, we could tap into these oracle providers, and this is another amendment that's in the pipeline right now for the XRP ledger as well, too. And so I like the optionality there, right, where you have the time-locked escrow, you have the password, where, basically you just have a human on the other side that's going to determine now's the right time, right? It's basically like having an executor of your trust. When you pass away, that's the executor of your trust. They're going to pass on the assets to your heir. Same thing. But then they're also adding some programmability there too, where you'll be able to tap in oracles, where something is confirmed by the oracle provider on chain. Basically that oracle provider is bringing the off-chain data on chain, and then you can confirm it and execute it without a human being in the middle. Okay. And we're obviously going into a new era of AI, where AI can be the oracle provider for a lot of these services as well, too. So like I said, all of this to say, this is all converging at the perfect time, right when the Clarity Act's going to pass. We'll have those regulations where it's not just going to be me and you, Joe Blow, lending some XRP, creating some escrows, playing around with some DeFi. It's going to be the institutions. And it's going to be institutions using the XRP ledger. And that's what we're here for. Now, speaking of institutions, let's go check our ETF tracker here. We had another 19.6 million of ETF daily volume today. $5.6 million for Franklin Templeton in the lead. Bitwise at 5.3, Canary at 3.5, Rex at 3, Grayscale at 1.93, and 21 shares at 139,000. So 21 shares still pretty small. I'm going to refresh this real quick just to get us an updated look. Yeah, so we're still here. 674 million XRP locked up. And that is just shy of 1.3 billion assets under management. So we've already surpassed Solana ETF assets under management. We set the day one record with that Canary XRP ETF. And so the demand is there. And now where this gets interesting is you're locking up XRP in this DeFi. You're locking up XRP in the ETFs. You're locking up XRP in the digital asset treasuries. I posted as a joke, but it is serious. I posted a picture of my coffee cup at IHOP with the family this weekend. We were going to go to a nicer restaurant, and the wait was like 30 minutes. So we're like, okay, we're going down the road here to IHOP. I hadn't ate at IHOP in so long. Back when I was a kid, my family, we'd always go to Denny's. Classic Denny's. I haven't ate there so long. But anyways, we go to IHOP, and I'm paying every time I take the family out to, eat, I'm using that Gemini card. And so that's locking up XRP, right? That's adding more utility for XRP. I'm paying for pancakes for the family, and I'm earning 3% back in XRP. And all of the XRP that I've accumulated so far is just sitting in my Gemini wallet. And I don't know what I'm going to do with it. Down the road, I'll pass that on down to the children, or we'll be putting it into some sort of fund or DeFi to earn a yield, right? This is XRP that I'm just going to sit on. I'm just swiping the card, fill up my truck. We talked about oil prices going down. It doesn't make a difference here in Washington State where I live. We're still paying $3.50 for gas. I'm still well above $4 a gallon for diesel. So, every time I fill up my truck, I'm earning, $4 back in XRP every single time. So I'm earning 2 XRP every time I fill up my truck. And then what happens? I bury it in the backyard with all the rest of my XRP that's buried in the backyard. And you guys are doing the same thing. Gemini cards, Uphold cards, Coinbase card, everybody's rolling out cards. And I'm so bullish on that because I think it's one of the best ways for the average person. People, poor, middle class, right? Credit cards can be troublesome, obviously. We have record high credit card debt. So I'm not telling or advising anybody to go out and get a credit card, especially if you're bad with credit cards. I pay off my credit cards every single month. And so if you do it right, though, it's a great way for just the regular person to be passively stacking XRP. And the great news, like I said, is that all of these providers are competing for our business. I seen that Uphold is now offering 6% back in XRP. And I think that's on everything. I don't think that they have the categories. I think it's just 6% back on everything on Uphold. Now, I don't have that, but guys, that's what I'm about. I want all of these businesses, these exchanges, these platforms, this DeFi, all these banks that are coming to service us, all of them competing for our business. And what ends up happening is people are passively stacking it and passively, holding it and locking it up. Once again, you lock it up in the DeFi, ETFs, digital asset treasuries, swiping your credit card to earn it, XRP being deployed in centralized offerings, XRP being deployed in lending protocols. Once we get lending live, people are going to lock up XRP in escrows as that becomes more popular and there's more functionality added to the escrow feature on the XRP ledger. People will be adding more XRP to escrow. Because right now, right, you can do a time-locked XRP escrow, but what about, if the child, just like you would set up in a trust, if the child graduates college with a 4.0, we give them an extra 10,000 XRP, right? That's a prime example. Mayuka used the birthday example, another good example there. But this all is locking up more XRP, okay? And I think that people are going to be in for a real surprise in the not too distant future when they realize the real available supply, or the stock market term is the real float for XRP. It's not the 60 billion circulating supply, the 100 billion total supply. We're nowhere near any of those numbers. We're well below 20 billion. We're probably well below 10 billion. And I've been making the case that we're even below 10 billion, even if XRP goes up to $5 and $10. And I'm accounting for all of the people that are selling XRP at $5 and $10. You know, I think that there's a billion XRP that gets sold at that price level, right? You know, there's folks that have held XRP for a long time. They're going to take a little bit of profit. You add all that up, and I'm looking at the available float of XRP at $10 is still probably not even 10 billion. And I talked about this with Sal and I asked Sal what he thought Ripple was going to be doing with their escrow and their supply. And he had some very interesting thoughts. You guys are going to want to check out the interview that I dropped tomorrow morning. That's with CEO of 2Cream, Sal Gabberty. And he said, we were talking about this in the context of Ripple now becoming a bank. And the conversation is the Clarity Act may require Ripple to drop their holdings below that 20% threshold, which would accelerate the distribution of XRP to their institutional partners. But then in the context of Ripple being a bank, right? Sal said, if I was them, if I was a bank, right, I would want to have a very strong balance sheet. And this is their, the best part of their balance sheet is the XRP that they have. And so we get into a conversation of how much XRP is actually going to be distributed from Ripple going forward. In my bottom line conclusion, I mean, nobody has hard numbers, right, on how much XRP is on the OTC, on how much is on the dark pools, how much is on available float, how much XRP will be sold by the time we go to $10. But we can just conservatively say that it's well below that circulating supply of 60 billion. And then when you see that in 1 month's time, these ETFs have soaked up, almost 700 million, almost a billion XRP, right? We're talking about probably 10% of the available float just got soaked up by the ETFs. Not the circulating supply. 10% of the available float. Let's round off for easy math. If the available float of XRP is 10 billion and the ETFs soak up a billion, right? That's 10% of the available float just got soaked up into the ETFs in 1 month. And yet people think that XRP can't go to some of these high prices, as we've shown with that market cap multiplier. And I know a lot of people are asking me, Zach, what happened to your market cap multiplier? All these inflows into the ETFs. There is a chunk of XRP that's coming from Ripple into those ETFs. If you look at the S1 for the 21 shares, they seeded it with about 100 million XRP at least, I think, maybe more. And so, that one did soak up some XRP, but a lot of that did come from Ripple. And the rest of the XRP that's coming into these ETFs is coming OTC. But eventually, does that OTC dry up? That's what we're looking for next. Now, here's the tally. Canary Capital has 171 million XRP, 21 shares. See, 21 shares jumped up here to 120 million, but a large chunk of that did come in from Ripple. Ripple helped to seed that. And it's very important to understand, that doesn't dump the price of XRP. It just doesn't make the ETF issuers have to go to the public market, which would drive up price, which I know we want to see that. Right? We're getting frustrated. We're getting impatient. We want to see XRP go up today. We want these ETF issuers and these institutions to have to go to the secondary market and buy our bags. You guys got a little bit of XRP that you want to sell at $10, at $20, at $30, right? And so it frustrates us when we see, that this is how it's being done, but it's important to understand that at least it's not negatively impacting price of XRP to the downside, right? And at the end of the day, it is successfully distributing XRP from Ripple without impacting price, which is what we want. If you want to build out a world reserve currency, you need distribution. You need worldwide usage. This is the problem with a lot of other currencies, and why they can't replace the US dollar as a reserve currency status is nobody trusts them. So you don't get usage of it, right? People don't want dollars, which is another use case for XRP. People don't want, People don't want the yen. People don't want the Chinese dollar. They don't want the ruble. This is why BRICS hasn't been able to come up with the solution either. You need that neutral bridge currency. This is where XRP comes in. No counterparty risk, completely neutral, and can settle in 3 to 5 seconds at no cost. There's no other asset that's ready to be that solution. Bitcoin, Ethereum, the US dollar. And so Grayscale is over 107 million now for their ETF. Bitwise at 104 million. Franklin Templeton, they're at 91. Rex at 50. And then they've now included the Bitwise. I like that. This is the index that holds about 5% allocation to XRP. Like 70% of that's Bitcoin, a little bit in Ethereum. And then XRP is the number 3, I believe, or maybe Solana's right there too. But 5% of the Bitwise index is XRP. They have 28 million XRP backing that. We have the Franklin Templeton index ETF that's coming out here soon. And that one has a 19% allocation to XRP. And I asked Sal, I said, how popular are these index funds going to be? And he says, they're going to be everything. They're going to be massive because this is what the traditional investor is used to investing in. They're used to buying the S&P 500 index, the Vanguard 500. They're used to buying the ETF, right? And when you look at pension funds and 401ks and all that, these people are used to their financial advisor or their fiduciary selling them the next ETF index product. And so it's just a natural transition here for the cryptocurrency space, going from single spot cryptos to index and basket ETFs. And those index and basket ETFs are also locking up XRP behind them, all leading to that supply shock that's coming. Quick update on the TA from Terra Precision Trade. XRP already bounced back up to $1.95. That was this morning on the recovery, right? But Bitcoin is only halfway done with its retrace. This is going to throw XRP waves off a little bit. If it breaks down the $1.91 level, low time frame support, which is at $1.90, when Bitcoin pushes for its 382 fib at 88,800, then I expect XRP to come all the way up to as high as $2 resistance. Another touch of support at $1.88 is still possible. As long as it's under $2, I'll keep you updated with my thoughts. And so I'll move on over to my XRP chart. I am expecting one more sweep low before the interest rate decision comes in, or shortly after the interest rate decision comes in from the Bank of Japan. We're looking here, and this is the order block that we were waiting to fill up. The order block started at $1.94, and it goes all the way down here to $1.81, the low that we hit on November 21st. And sure enough, that's where we came down yesterday on Monday. And then today we came back down here to basically $1.85, but then a quick bounce back up to $1.94, which was the top of this order block. But that's where we hit resistance. We come back down, and now we're trading here at about $1.93. I'm expecting one more sweep low here over the next week, whether that comes in before the interest rate decision from Japan or comes in after, we will see. But I'd already placed my buy order at $1.91 to add to my XRP long. So I'm buying. Sal said that he's buying, right? Everybody that I know that has real fundamental conviction in this space, maybe they're not buying XRP at this point, but they're looking for other cryptos. I've had a lot of one-on-one conversations in our Discord group and other folks that have booked a one-on-one call with me. And they're saying, I'm pretty happy with my XRP bags, but now I'm looking for what other assets can I diversify into? And you guys know me. I'm over 95% XRP exposure, not even including my XRP memes, which brings in my XRP exposure well over 95%. So, when you hear me talk about having investments in some of these other cryptos, none of them are over more than 1% of my portfolio. These are all very small allocations. And I'm looking for runners too, right? I'm looking to diversify into some of these others as well for short-term trades. And I think that there's going to be a big relief rally, as I titled this update, and I'm about to explain here now. the liquidity is coming back. Okay. The liquidity is coming back. And so I want to break this down real briefly. I already recorded an update earlier today, which will give you the full rundown of breaking this down in depth. But I want to touch on this briefly here tonight so that folks understand this bull run's coming back. Things got thrown off here in 2025, but we can explain why. And this isn't hopium. This isn't copium. This isn't, I just want to make you feel warm and fuzzy inside. This isn't, I need clicks. This is, I want to save our people. This is, I want to share an opportunity that's the greatest transfer of wealth in world history. And I want to share real analysis, real facts, and real data so that you can have real conviction to be buying right now when you get the best opportunities to enter into these assets instead of running scared like so many people are making that mistake right now. So let's get into it. Let's break it down. If you guys haven't already, please help us out by liking this video, sharing it out far and wide. We're going to get into rapid fire Q&A too. We're definitely going to get into your Q&A. And we're going to have some fun tonight. This party's still rolling. Yeah, I'll address some of the comments that are I see in the chat. We'll get there. I see you. I am already ready to address it. You guys want me to address it? I'm going to address it. Are you ready for the truth? Can you handle the truth? I see you. I'm coming. We'll get there. Okay? What are we talking about? We're talking about the ISM Manufacturing PMI, which is the Purchasing Managers Index, okay? Now, what this index does, I'm going to break this down right here for you guys real quick. This is a survey of purchasing executives from over 400 U.S. manufacturing companies across 20 industries. So this is a real gauge on where our economy stands at. Managers report changes, better, same, or worse, for 5 main components: new orders, production, employment, supplier deliveries, and inventories. The calculation comes in. The overall PMI is a composite of equally weighted index of these 5 sub-indices, each weighted at 20%. Now, when the number's above 50, greater than 50, right, that is growth or expansion in the manufacturing sector. When it's below 50, that's in contraction, and at 50 is no change. This is a leading indicator of overall economic activity and growth. And so let's get into it. Here is the chart. Let me make sure that this is still lined up. Yep. Okay. So what I'm about to show you next is the chart for this index, this PMI, Purchasing Managers Index, PMI. Let's get right on into it. What you're looking at here, the blue line is obviously where it's trading at. And what I've done here is I've marked the lows in the orange vertical lines, and we've marked the peaks in the green line. Okay? And what you're going to see here is the correlation between the PMI bottoming out and us going into contraction with Bitcoin and the broader market going into contraction. When the PMI extends up into expansion, this is when crypto's expanding. And this all goes back to a function of liquidity, right? So the correlation here is with the liquidity cycle as well too. When we have good, easy, and cheap liquidity, people are feeling better. People are spending money. People are feeling good, right? People are making investments. People are purchasing and orders are coming in. And so these guys are going to report that to the ISM, and that's how this index is comprised. And so take a look here at how close this correlation is, and you'll understand why we didn't get the bull run in 2025 that we wanted. But I'm also going to show you, check out where my yellow, this is my green box. Go check out the green box here on this chart, because this is where we're heading next, back into expansion in 2026. Take a look. Okay, we're talking about where we're at right now, being at 48, and we're about to move back on up here into expansion in 2026. But take a look at this. So in January of 2016, this is when the PMI bottomed out at about 47. Flip on over to Bitcoin in 2016. Bitcoin was trading at 5.89 billion back here in January of 2016. This asset was nothing, only a $5 billion market cap. And we're looking at the market cap chart here. Now, when did the PMI top out? Well, that would be December 2017. And you see here that that's when Bitcoin went up to about 20,000 in 2017, and the market cap was about 335 billion. Let's go back to the PMI. Next cycle. When did it bottom out in 2020? April. And it went all the way down to about 41 on the index here, right here, back in April of 2020. And then it topped out in March of 2021. Let's go to the Bitcoin chart. Bitcoin, March 2020. That's when we got cleaned, right? The market cap dropped all the way down to about 77 billion, right? Below 100 billion for the Bitcoin market cap. And then sure enough, in March of 2021, when the PMI topped out, all right, if we go back right here, March of 2021, the PMI topped out. That's when Bitcoin had broken up to a new all-time high, up at a 1.15 trillion. This marker, it's supposed to be right here. That's when the PMI topped out at March 2021. And then Bitcoin did continue up to a new high there in April of 2021. And then later in November of 2021, that's when the Bitcoin top in its 69,000 came in, a $1.3 trillion market cap. Right, so you can see that when the PMI bottomed out in April of 2020, that's exactly when Bitcoin was bottoming out. The March 2020 simulation event sacrifice. And then we ran back up March 2021. That's when it tops out for the PMI. And sure enough, new all-time high comes in for Bitcoin. It wasn't done then. It did extend up to a new all-time high in November 2021. Now, this isn't down to the exact date per se, but you're starting to see the correlation, aren't you? Back to the PMI for this current cycle. So this just bottomed out in June of 2023, down here at about 46. But what's important to note is that it went back into contraction here in October of 2022. When did Bitcoin bottom out? November of 2022. So at basically the same exact time as the PMI bottomed out in 2020, Bitcoin bottomed out. The same exact time that the PMI went into contraction in 2022 is when Bitcoin bottomed out. And then you'll see right here, June 2023 is when it officially bottomed out. Back to the PMI chart, we look and we see that we have barely extended back into expansion here in January of 2025. Well, what was happening in January of 2025? That's when Trump had come in and XRP, Bitcoin, it all went to a new all-time high up here. And then it extended up in October, just like it did in the 2021 cycle. And so here we are, Bitcoin tops out and it adds 1.76 trillion. What was added this cycle was the ETFs. And so this actually took it in January of 2024 at about basically a 760 billion market cap, up to a 2.5 trillion market cap in October of this year. 1.76 trillion of market cap growth after the ETFs, without the PMI going back into expansion for any length of time. We barely went back into expansion in January of this year, which is exactly when, XRP went up to $3.40. Bitcoin ran back up above 100,000, right? And now we look at this PMI chart and we're back down, and we just got a reading on PMI today, and it was actually below expectations. But what we're watching for now is for a return back into expansion, based off of the Fed lowering rates, the Fed bringing back QE. People are going to feel, we had to unwind everything this past year, right? We're talking about the Japan carry trade and unwinding that. Well, we also had to unwind all of the bad policies of the previous administration. And that's not just politics, that's just fact. I mean, come on. Let's have a real conversation here. That's not politics, it's just facts, right? Janet Yellen front loads us with over $7 trillion of debt. I mean, come on. It's like, come on, right? And so we had to unwind all this. On top of that, we're battling the Fed, which didn't give us any rate cuts till later in this year. They deliver 3 rate cuts, but they came in too late. And so liquidity was tight this entire year. Our PMI was in contraction territory for this entire year. So our business cycle was in the dumps. Our liquidity was tight. The Fed was literally doing quantitative tightening, selling off assets on their balance sheet instead of the opposite, which is QE, adding assets to their balance sheet, making that money printer go burr. And so it should be no surprise why our 2025 bull run ran short. A lot of cryptos topped out in December and January of 2025 as the business cycle hit its most recent high. I mean, 2 + 2 still equals 4. If people aren't feeling good about the economy, they're not placing orders, they're not investing in their business, right? Then it's reflected in the PMI. Well, it's also reflected in crypto, right? People were buying meme coins. People were buying Trump coin. People were buying Melania coin. People were buying crap coin. People were buying XRP all the way up to $3.40. People were buying Bitcoin, right? And the only reason that Bitcoin extended here above 100,000 and reached that 126,000 mark in October of last month, or 2 months ago now, is purely ETFs. Without the 62 billion of inflows into the ETFs, Bitcoin wouldn't have hit 100,000 this cycle. I mean, the business cycle, we got a couple rate cuts there right before the election. The business cycle started to pick up. People were excited about Trump. We had the most pro-crypto Congress elected. People were excited about the business cycle. People were excited about liquidity coming back. We're going to lower rates. President Trump said we need to bring rates down. He campaigned on that. He was bashing Jerome Powell the entire time he was campaigning. And so people were feeling good. We're feeling good about liquidity coming back. We're feeling good about the business cycle. We're buying crypto. We're buying Trump coin. We're buying meme coins. We're throwing money all over the place. And then the high wears off and we realize, oh, wait, we're still dealing with Jerome Powell. And he's not delivering us more rate cuts. And he's still continuing with quantitative tightening. And we have trillions of short-term treasuries that we need to roll over. We have trillions of commercial real estate that need to be rolled over. We have hundreds of billions and probably over $1 trillion of residential real estate that needs to be rolled over at lower rates, and we're not getting them. And what ends up happening, it's a ripple effect. Now you're seeing that the layoffs, and we just talked about the unemployment rate at the start of this episode, up at 4.6%. And companies are now in contraction. Companies can't get cheap credit. The credits are tapped. We've tapped out. So it should be no surprise why we sit where we are at here today. With XRP being back below $2, with Bitcoin being back below 90,000, with Ethereum just being a piece of crap in general and back below 3,000. That's just Ethereum struggling on the struggle bus over there for Ethereum. And a lot of these cryptos, right? A lot of these cryptos topped out in December, January, February, and that was it. And these cryptos have been in a 10-month bear market. It all adds up, doesn't it? Where's the good news? Well, the good news is what's coming in 2026. We're talking about QE returning, rates dropping, Clarity Act passing. So we have monetary and fiscal stimulus tailwinds, regulatory tailwinds. Specific to XRP, we have DeFi and development tailwinds, right? And folks are trying to say that we're going into a prolonged bear market. And they say, well, yeah, 4-year cycles are over, but we're still going into a bear market. I mean, technically, we're in a bear market, right? In the traditional markets, a 20% move to the downside is a bear market. 20% move to the upside is a bull market. So by traditional standards, sure, XRP has been in a bear market since July, 45% down. Still up over 300% since before the election. Still up 5 to 10x for all of us that bought between 18 cents and 40 cents, which is a lot of us that are tuning into tonight's show. For the new people here, don't beat yourself up, right? Because we have had a year of nothing but great fundamentals. Conventional wisdom would say, we should be moving back up until you dig a little bit deeper. And that's where real analysis comes in. And I wish I would have been tapped in on this sooner. My apologies for not being on top of this, but I'm still learning. I'm always learning, right? I'm humbled by these markets all the time. I bought the top with everybody else, but I'm also living proof of how to dollar cost average back down. I entered my XRP long above $3.40 in July. If you bought the top above 340, above 350, right there with you. So while you're beating yourself up, you can beat me up too. You can make fun of me too. Smash a pie in my face as well. But what did I do? Did I sit and pout for the last 5 months? No. We took action. And what I've done is I've dollar cost averaged and I've sold off my position. My XRP long, I had to sell it off a couple times and then buy back in, sell it off, buy back in, continue to buy lower. I knew that the Bank of Japan interest rate decision was going to bring in some volatility here. But I told the Discord group this weekend, I said, guys, if we get above, my average price at the time was 223. And I said, if we get up above 230, I'll take profit and then I'll buy back in lower. But otherwise, I'm just going to hold. Well, we didn't get any rally back up to 220. We got front ran by the market makers that dumped us yesterday, Monday morning. But I had my order sitting at $1.91, exactly where that next order block was sitting below us. So I filled my order at $1.91. And now I'm looking and debating, do I want to add again at the, if we do get that sweep down below $1.90 again, into the $1.80s again, I may look to hit that level up. And if we do get black swanned or smacked with something out of left field, we're already kind of pricing in the rate hike from Japan. I think that a lot of people are kind of front running that. And so that's already kind of being priced in. So I'm not expecting this big, 50% drop, 35% drop that we've gotten in the past. But I will be buying if we go back into the $1.60 region. And that's the level that I think will hold even if we get hit with the big one. There's just too many people waiting to buy. There's too many people waiting to buy again at $1.80. And I think that's, we're going to get one more sweep below $1.90, either before the interest rate decision or shortly thereafter. And if we get hit with something nasty, we definitely could break below. And the low this year, I don't include the 10-10 liquidation chart, from Binance where XRP went down to $1.25. I don't include that. That wasn't a real market. What I look at is the Coinbase chart where XRP went down to $1.60 in April, $1.77 on the 10-10 liquidation event, and then we set a higher low November 21st at $1.81. And so we have big, massive support at $1.60. Some coins have already broken below their yearly lows that they went down to in April. And they're setting new lows right now. XRP's not. The structure's still very solid. And my objective is to share this information, get the PSA out. You know, the content that we've dropped over the last couple of days here has gotten hundreds of thousands of views. From my TikToks to my YouTube videos. We've brought in hundreds of thousands of views, sounding the alarm about a pullback that we could see from the Bank of Japan interest rate decision. Why are we doing that? So that it's not any worse than it could be, right? So that I can get my orders in, you guys can get your orders in, and we can basically front run this. And collectively, we set up that buy wall, right? And you're seeing the smart money is accumulating right now. I just saw a chart on the Bitcoin whales. The Bitcoin whales are eating it up. Same thing happening with XRP. Give me 1 second. I see that we got a fake Zach Rector in the chat. Let me get caught up. There we go. And so all of this to say, we have an incredible bull run that's coming back in 2026 is going to catch a lot of people off guard. I want to make sure that our community is ready for that. And then I also, to me, it's just as important to get out my content warning when the market's pulling back as it is to put out the content talking about us moving back up. You have me and hundreds of other XRP content creators that are putting out content all the time, right? And it's very easy to put out content in a bull market. When everything's up and to the right, everything's hunky-dory, happy slappy, you know, I slap your back, you slap my back, or whatever, you know, everybody's having a good time. It's another thing to be able to share the analysis on the good and then the bad and the ugly. And especially when it comes to the warning of these pullbacks, because it allows our community to be prepared to make better entries. And so to me, I try to put as much work as possible into sharing when is the downside coming as we do to when the upside's coming. And you'll see, right, that there's a lot of people out here where it's only hopium. It's only up and to the right. It's only, I'm buying, it's going up tomorrow, it's going up this month, it's going up whenever. And they don't have the real analysis that we want to equip our community with so that you can see when these opportunities arise and you can take advantage of them. And that's what I try to do here every day. That's why I put so much effort in these markets every single day. I barely took, Sunday. I worked. I did have to get out a few things, like posting that I was taking the family to IHOP and we're making a little XRP. I joked and I said that pancakes or IHOP are leading to the supply shock. So, I try to take some time here once in a while to take a family day. My wife has to drag me out of this office. And even when I'm out of the office, I can work from wherever. I stay tapped in all the time. And it's a real struggle that I have to actually put it down, put it away. Because I know how much our community is riding on, me keeping folks tapped in. So we got a big interview dropping tomorrow morning. Sal Gabberti, to Cream. Won't want to miss it. Very bullish. Great perspective too. This is the insight that shows you an insider's perspective from Wall Street. And then we got some other big content coming up later this week too that I think you guys are going to like as well. So make sure you guys are subscribed. Hit that notification bell. All of our community resources are available at zachrector.com. Now, I want to address something that came up from today's video. This morning, I dropped an interview with Mark Kohler. Now, I am very happy to now be working with KKOS Lawyers, which is Mark Kohler's law firm, for my own personal, legal, and estate planning. But then also the feedback that I've been getting from our community has been tremendous. In the interview that we dropped today, we upset some people, okay? And the objective was not to attack anybody personally. What I did is I asked our community, hey guys, I'm going to have Mark Kohler on. Give me your questions. Give me your concerns. What do you want to know when it comes to legal and estate planning? Now, it's no secret that you have, Jake Claver has been out here and he's been talking about LLCs, estate planning, and thinking ahead, which is all great. We've talked about this in the past, and we continue to talk about it. It's very important. What I did is I just took questions from our community, and I'm not saying it's necessarily the way that Jake's been marketing it, but I do think that there might be something there. But you also have others out here in the way that things are being marketed where people are just wondering what to do. What do they actually need? And so I came to Mark and I said, hey, I'd like to get you back on the show for a public YouTube interview so that we can break down. And I broke up the show into two parts. The first part was for new people coming in. New people coming into the space that want to just accumulate crypto and secure it. And then the second part of the show is for people that are a little bit more advanced. How do we include crypto in our broader estate planning? So those were the two parts. And I have had so many one-on-one conversations. I've had so many people reach out to me, and they have a sense of urgency and FOMO that has been concerning. Okay. And so that's why I came and I asked Mark directly, do folks need to set up the LLC right from the get-go? Do we like to set it up in Wyoming? What are the benefits of Wyoming? Mark doesn't know Jake. And I know a lot of people took this as a personal attack on Jake. That's not what it was meant to be. What it was meant to be is, what have you seen in your expertise, in your experience of over 20 years of providing legal and estate planning? What have you seen that are common red flags? Mark didn't even know Jake. He doesn't know Jake. And so the point wasn't to talk about Jake at all. It was to talk about what folks that have been bringing me questions about Wyoming LLCs. When is the right time to set up the LLCs? And for those who don't know Mark, he's very passionate, if you can't tell. He's very animated. He's very dramatic. He gets very excited about this stuff because he knows his stuff. And so I know that some people didn't like the message and the delivery, and they thought, wow, this is kind of harsh. And it felt like this attack on Jake. It's not what it was meant to be. We wanted to break down for the community how to get started. When is it the right time for an LLC? What do LLCs actually do for us? The attitude that Mark has is not towards somebody that he doesn't even know. It's towards the dozens and countless of other scammers in the legal and estate planning space. That's what we were looking to address. I understand why some folks were upset. I will say that I have some concerns about some of the things that have been said. Everybody knows, because everybody's been asking me about Jake's prediction all year long. And I've said all year long that it's not going to happen, that there's not a chance. I know he's still saying that we get $100 this month. There's not a chance. That's just the difference of opinion. I have some other concerns. All I want to do is to report the facts to our community. That is the objective, to report the facts to our community and to let folks make their own decision. I will come out and say that I think it's caused some problems for our community when folks have the expectation that, it's 100% certainty or 99% certainty of XRP going to very high prices this year. With that level of conviction and certainty and putting it all out there, I think that it's been a little troublesome. And I can say that because I have a pulse on our community almost like nobody else. I read all of your comments. I'm in these markets every day. I'm on Twitter all day. I observe all of it, the good, the bad, and the ugly. And I've had so many people coming up to me with a sense of FOMO, confusion, and uncertainty, like they can't move forward in crypto unless they have the Wyoming LLC, unless they've done all of this estate planning. And that is the context for what I brought to Mark Kohler. Mark didn't know Jake. He's not trying to attack Jake. But Mark is a guy who has been criticizing the overpriced irrevocable trust for years. You can go back and watch. He's got hundreds and probably thousands of hours of free content on his YouTube talking specifically about irrevocable trust at $20, $30, $40, $50,000 price tags. My only thing that I've said is that I do think that some of their services could be overpriced. But the cheapest option is not always the best. And my objective with my platform is to always just provide the clarity, always provide the facts. And I understand that people were very upset with me, very upset with Mark. I understand that people didn't like the delivery. But nobody had anything to say about the content that he put down. Nobody had anything to criticize. Nobody had anything to retort with what he was saying. And it's because there are lawyers that are taking advantage of people. They're selling Wyoming LLCs at thousands of dollars. They are selling irrevocable trust. I personally have seen these companies targeting our XRP family with elaborate irrevocable trust schemes that are overpriced and unnecessary for most people. And so I wanted to address it just to give that context. I'm not here to put down anybody else. There is no competition. There is no me versus anybody else. It is me versus me. I try to improve myself every single day. And I put out my content for free every single day. You get to watch my content and get my analysis, whether you go to my website and use any of my affiliate links, whether you go use my sponsor, I Trust Capital, whether you go buy my XRP family merch, it is here for free. If you want a little bit more in-depth, you can sign up for my community. If you do want to check out the community resources that I use, they're there. This is how I make my living. And it's perfectly aligned with this community because I value trust more than I do the money. The money comes because we have so much trust, because we do get attention for good platforms. Good platforms that our community needs. There's some people that need to grow up in their criticism of folks that mention a platform or folks that do have a sponsor or two that are good community resources. Why would we not want to make our community aware of who's helping us out? Whether it be exchanges, whether it be lawyers, right? I've actually praised some of the things that are being done over, by Jake and Digital Wealth Partners. I also am going to be critical of some of the things, right? And for me, I just want our XRP family to have clarity no matter who they're getting content from, no matter who they're hiring for services, no matter what platform they're using. That is my objective. And so I know I went a little long-winded on that response, but I know that we did, shake things up a little bit. And I just wanted to provide that context so that folks understand we're not here to spend any time bashing anybody. And the only thing that we ask for is the truth from other content creators, from these service providers. And we all have to, as a community, hold each other accountable. That's all. That's it. And so I hope that provides context and address some of the concerns that people had. Wyoming LLCs are great. Yeah. Irrevocable trust. There is a time and a place for an irrevocable trust, right? This is not something that's just specific to the XRP community. This is common. I mean, for crying out loud, we're talking about financial advisors that are putting you in the 60-40 portfolio. You know what I'm saying? And so that is why we have Mark on. Mark is here to educate people before he's here to sell any of his services. And that's what I appreciate about him. He wouldn't be putting out as much free content that he does on YouTube if he didn't care about the people. Of course, people have a business, right? And we don't hide the fact on how we make our money, when we make our money, how much fees are, right? Mark said he can set up a Wyoming LLC for $1,200. He can renew it every single year for $200. It's very fair. His law firm did my trust and all of my estate planning and my trifecta strategy for all in for $4,000. I thought it was reasonable. I was very happy with it, right? But my resources aren't the only resources. These are just the ones that I like, that I've established relationships with, and that I have great community feedback from. And that's the power of this community, is when you guys tell me, hey, this provider did something that we don't like. You bring that to me, and then we go straight to them. We've done this countless times. And we go back to these platforms for the bad. We also go for the good. We go to these platforms and say, hey, have you guys thought about this? We just had I Trust Capital on, and we talked about well, they can't call it yield because the wording of the Genius Act and the Clarity Act, but the rewards and how they're trying to bring returns for your XRP, right? And we've been saying the same thing about everybody trying to provide returns to the XRP family. Love it. Love the competition. I love that there's competition for the cards. Love that there's competition in the DeFi. Love that there's competition in CDeFi, right? I threw a bunch of money around at Flare just to test that out. We'll see what the hell happens. I'm going to throw some at Doppler. That's a centralized, offering, right? And I would, and my thing is I'm trying out all these so that I can report back to you guys and let you know what we find. And so, I did talk with Mark today and, explain, kind of what was going on. And he's a good guy, right? He's high energy. He's very energetic. And the reason why he has that much energy for this is because he knows his stuff and because he's seen so many people get taken advantage when it comes to these services. And the more that I've learned about financial services and legal and estate planning, the more I've seen it myself as well too. And so, bring it here to me, bring it here to this community. We don't hide anything. We put it forward. And if it's good, we talk about it. If it's bad, we'll talk about it. If it's ugly, I might talk about it, but I can't get in trouble. I can't get in trouble. With that being said, let's get into rapid fire Q&A. I appreciate everybody for stopping by here tonight. Thank you for allowing me to clarify that. We're one XRP family in this together. We all want to win. You know, we all want to win. And that's what it's about. Sticking together through the good times and the bad times. Let's get into it. Here we go. Dennis says, I've stopped swearing. Online needs DA check. What does that mean? Dennis, what does that mean? Watch your language. I don't know what that means. Good to see you, Dennis. Work first. Will silver dump with reverse carry trade? If so, by how much? Yes, but we have a floor price on silver now at 50. I'm looking for, if we do get a sweep below 60, I don't think it's going to last long. And we'll be looking for a new floor price to be established on the previous all-time high, which is about 50. That's what I'm looking at right now. So, yeah, in the reverse carry trade, everybody gets wiped out. We're all going to get smacked if the reverse carry trade really starts to unwind. It's happening slowly right now. I know there's rumors circulating that they're going to raise by 75 basis points. That's not founded on anything other than people just throwing that out there, probably for clicks. 25 basis points is the consensus. That's the expectation. Could they raise by, say, 50? Yeah. Could they have an emergency meeting at some point and raise by more? Yeah. But the market and everybody else, the expectation from the Bank of Japan is a 25 basis point rate hike. And once again, that'll be delivered Thursday night between 10 and 11 Eastern Standard Time. Okay. So we'll probably do our Thursday night live show. Come on back for the Thursday night live show, and you will see that we should have that interest rate decision coming in during the live show. So come on back Thursday night, and we'll have that. But yeah, if the reverse carry trade starts to unwind, look out below. But we got solid floor price of $50 on silver. XRP has solid support levels as well too. And so this is kind of a moving target. We have to watch and see where we're at. And then if we do get smacked up, like I said, I think that $1.60 holds on XRP. Okay. Visha, thank you. Do you think that XRP will dump more on Friday? And do you think that it can bounce back to at least $3 by January 2026? Yeah. I think that I explained that earlier. I kind of just mentioned it there. But I'm looking for one more sweep down below $1.90, maybe $1.88. If we get, down to $1.81, that was the low on November 21st. But there's going to be a lot of buyers down there. I mean, I probably will end up throwing some money at that too at that level. And I will be going in heavy if we go down to $1.60. But I think $1.81 holds. I do think that we get a sweep below $1.90 here in the next week. And then this would, I'm not really so sure. We could get a Santa Claus rally, but I'm looking for Q1 2026 for us to move back towards $3. Yeah. 2021, Q1 2026, I am looking for us to move back up above $3. Yes. High on Life, thank you. Appreciate that. John Ferguson, thank you, sir. Mark Kohler is one of the best tax attorneys and strategists I know. And John, thank you. John personally introduced me to Mark. And a lot of gratitude for that connection, brother. Thank you once again. We had Mark come on into our Discord call in August. And we had a great conversation there. If you're in the Discord group, I have that private recording available if you guys want to check out that one. He was a little more calm. We didn't get as fired up as he did on the video that we dropped this morning. But I think that both were really good pieces of content that broke through a lot of the noise and the confusion and the BS. And Mark's not afraid to call out the crap because he's seen it. He's been around for 20 plus years in this business. So yeah, thanks again, Johnny, for making that connection for me. And really happy with the services that they've been providing for our community. If you guys are looking to get in touch with Mark's team, you set up a free 15-minute interview, and then they'll direct you in the right direction depending on what you need. But I have that linked up in the description down below. It's also at the website. That's a free interview, and then they see if you're a right fit, and then they will send you in the direction of a consultation and let you know how much the services are going to be, how much the consultation is going to be. Like I said, the consultation for my trifecta strategy, which sets up additional LLCs and S corps and the trust, all of that combined was $4,000. So I was very happy with that. Okay. Appreciate that though, guys. Okay, let's go rapid fire Q&A with it. I appreciate everybody for stopping by. Is Mark still a licensed CPA? I like him. Not sure. They don't do, they have a network of accountants across the country, and I just used his network to hire a new accountant for myself in my state. And really happy. They've already started working on my stuff, and we're planning right now. End of the year tax planning, we're doing it right now. Planning for 2026, we're doing it right now. I actually rolled over my media company as an LLC. We're rolling that over to an S corp. This is all because of Mark Kohler's strategies, but then his network of accountants are trained up in his strategies as well. So, they don't do the tax planning or preparation themselves. They have a network of people that do that. They just do the legal and estate planning right now. Yeah, just look up Mark Kohler on YouTube. You will get a lot of value from his YouTube channel. Great stuff. Go ahead, rapid fire Q&A. Thank you everybody for stopping by. Happy XRP's a commodity. It's so big, this commodity classification, and then the ability to have it as collateral for sophisticated traders. This is massive. And in fact, when I asked Sal Gaberti about this, he said that for a lot of ETFs, if they're below $5 per share, you cannot put them up as collateral. A lot of people won't accept them as collateral. So the fact that XRP is getting accepted as collateral while it trades at $2, major deal. He said that they've done stock splits on some of their ETFs so that it would trade above $5 per share so that they could have it held as margin collateral. So the fact that XRP is getting this while it's below $2 is a big deal. Maybe the CFTC knows that it's going above $5, huh? Yeah, no, I sold off my landscape company. No, I don't have that company anymore. I do this full time. Johnny, thank you again, brother. Zach's level of integrity is second to none. Pay attention to what he's doing. Mark is a CPA and attorney. His firm has been serving businesses for a long time. Wonderful reputation. Yeah, and I'm so excited to be working with them going forward as well, too. Just the move from an LLC to an S corp is saving me a bunch in taxes. Getting my estate plan set up now, especially with my children and everything. It's so important. And then it was funny though. You guys saw I asked Mark. I said, Mark, what am I supposed to do? I got 7% capital gains tax here in Washington State. And he laughed at me. He said, basically stop being a crybaby. He said a lot of other states have it a lot worse. California and others, it's a lot worse. And I'm thinking to myself, well, I guess it could be worse, but there's ways to avoid that, staying in state. But then they also help with strategic relocation, which a lot of people need to do as well too. I think that strategic relocation needs to be top of mind for a lot of folks, with the turbulence that we see in the cities and what have you, and obviously states that have lost their mind and are in a competition to see who can have the least amount of common sense. Absolutely. Will oil embargo with Venezuela cause the price of XRP to go up? No. In my opinion, the part that Jake has wrong about the domino theory is assuming that XRP institutional adoption comes in at scale before the Clarity Act and as the solution to settle up the stock market. I don't see that happening. Now, the dominoes are dropping, right? I mean, oil is still going down. Oil hasn't spiked. It's been going down all year. But Japan has been raising rates and that carry trade has been unwinding. But just because that's happening doesn't mean that XRP is the chosen one for the back end of the stock market. And from what I gathered at Ripple Swell, talking to these banks and institutions face to face and listening to what they had to say up on stage, is that, yeah, XRP has clarity, but until they have the rules of the road, they're not going to move forward. So I know he talks about this sweet spot where XRP has clarity before the Clarity Act, so it'll be chosen. No, not going to happen in my opinion. And so that's where I think the connection there doesn't occur. Yes, Mark can set up the charitable remainder trust. We didn't really get into it, but yes, yeah, they can do that as well too. I think that we get a run up before the Clarity Act passes. And then after the Clarity Act passes, we'll finally get to enter the era of utility that we've all been waiting for. This is when a double-digit XRP comes in. I think that we got a good run up coming up before the Clarity Act. Buy the rumor, sell the news. Mark my words. The day the Clarity Act passes, coming down, happens every single time. But, it's probably going to be a great buying opportunity because then we'll finally be in that era of utility without the rampant speculation, without the fraud, without all these rug pulls and stable coins and offshore exchanges offering 500x leverage. The cleansing that we're going through right now is very healthy. I know it's painful, right? But it's necessary. Do I think XRP will benefit from yen carry trade, or is it two separate things? Well, that's basically what I just explained, right? Right. Just because you can have oil spike causes Bank of Japan to raise rates more aggressively to battle inflation and to battle yen against oil, doesn't mean that XRP is going to be used to settle up the back end of the stock market. Now, funny enough, SBI did just announce that they are going to be tokenizing the Japanese yen. Now, if you've been listening to me over the past year or so, I've been talking about how I thought SBI was going to be the group that did tokenize the Japanese yen on the XRP ledger. Now, the group that they're working with, I don't think that they announced what blockchain they're going to be issuing on or even saying that it's just going to be one. Now, this is what Japan needs. Japan needs stablecoins that are backed by the short-term treasuries, right? Or even longer duration treasuries, like the 10-year, similar to what we have in the United States, where the stablecoins have to be backed by cash or treasuries. That's what Japan needs, because that's what helps to soak up more demand for those treasuries that are going up, right? And they're trying to battle that inflation, but they're going to blow themselves up in the process of raising those rates to fight the inflation. That's why they're between a rock and a hard place. What cold wallet do you recommend? I like Decent. I like Decent and EliPal. Decent and EliPal are my two favorites right now. I have both of them linked up at my website. Thank you. Where is XRP at right now? Let's take a look. $1.92. Yep. Let's refresh it on silver. Right at 66 bucks. Bitcoin coming back down right now about 86,000. So it came back down to 85,000, right? And this is the order block that we were looking to fill. We did fill that. Looking to hold this level here. But we did note if we got the 20% drop that we've seen every time Japan has raised rates, that's where that 72,000 Bitcoin was coming in. And that's where you would see XRP coming back down to the $1.60 level. That was from the prices that we were at when I made the warning. And then on Monday, I made the warning over the weekend. And then sure enough, we already did pull back here. So we've already pulled back about 8% from when I put out that warning. So we already went halfway there. But I'm looking for, we have this trend line that goes back here to April. Once again, that $1.60 low. Let me zoom in on the chart a little bit closer for you guys. This $1.60 low in April, $1.77 in October, and then on November 21st, we did $1.81. So as long as we hold up that level right here above $1.80, I think that would be the end of this correction before we start to move back up to the upside. And mostly in my, analysis, I don't play around with these charts all day long. Like I really don't. I spend very little time charting actually. Most of my work is in fundamental and macro. And then I'll specifically look at coins and take a quick look at the charts. But without macro and fundamental analysis, I think you're rolling blind in these markets. And so what I use is basically I just pull fibs. I look at order blocks, and then I look at, previous levels of support and resistance, and that's it. I don't use a bunch of, I don't even look at moving averages. Funny enough, the moving averages seem to actually correlate most of the time with big order blocks and previous levels of support. So, and resistance. So, and honestly, a big thing for me is psychology. I gauge the market and see, okay, crypto market's ahead of itself. We're too long. The market makers have more money to make shorting us. Market's going to come back down. I look at times like right now and I say, okay, we're oversold. Maybe I'll look at the RSI, but I don't have 50 different indicators. I don't use any bots. I don't sit and look at charts all day. This person says, you don't read comments either. Go ahead. Hit me with the rapid fire. Yeah, we have documents that are due to come out Friday. I won't really talk about that much here, but it's bad. My mentor, Dan Pena, he said, when you find out who the real creator of Bitcoin is, you won't be able to run to sell it fast enough. That makes sense, doesn't it? Right? I mean, there's no scenario where, it's Jack Dorsey and that makes you want to run to sell it. Or it's Hal Finney and a couple other developers and that makes you want to sell it. You would want to run to sell it as fast as possible if it was used for bad things. And he says he knows 100%. He's the only human on this planet that predicted negative oil in 2020. And he also predicted that cruise ships were going to be sold for scrap metal. He's a stubborn old man. He's a wartime general. Not really, but he's my wartime general. That's why I listen to him. And 50 plus years in business, created trillions of dollars of wealth and real equity positions through his mentees. He's the real deal. You look him through and through. I haven't found anybody that's on that level. And I would just say for any of you guys who are serious about being high level, super successful, not for the touchy-feely, not for the participation trophy, not for the I want to be happy slappy and I want to do the feel-good tour that a lot of these quote-unquote gurus and stuff are doing. Dan is not here to be your friend. But if you want one of the most effective programs that I have found and that I live by, you can go read and listen. You can listen to his audiobook, Your First 100 Million. And that lays out the full blueprint. I've listened to that audiobook literally over 20 times. My wife knows I'm crazy, but she says, "What the hell is wrong with you? Why?" And it's still, every time I listen to it, it's so inspirational and it just keeps me locked in. But I listen to everything that the old man puts out. He puts out little snippets from his Castle seminar. He's the real deal. But I wouldn't even recommend him for 90% of people. I wouldn't. It's not 1950. He lives by 1950. And that's the advantage. When you can apply those time-tested principles and then you are here in the new age and you understand tech, you understand AI, you understand crypto, and you apply those principles, it all goes back to Andrew Carnegie. That's the Dan Pena model. Is he took it from Andrew Carnegie, which was Carnegie didn't want to give away equity, and so it basically seller financed businesses, and you focus on mergers and acquisitions, not building from the ground up. That's the basic premise of it. Think of no money down home loans or no money down homes, flipping real estate investing, but you apply that to businesses. That is the model in a nutshell. The one moving target is your motivated seller. And the beauty of it is that when we have chaos, when we have blood in the streets, you have more motivated sellers. That's where we find ourselves today, which is why I've been saying for the past 3 years that I've been listening to him, now's our time. You cut and slash through this chaos. You're the one that brings order to your community, your business, and your family. The order out of chaos motto that the enemy lives by, you take control of that. We got another super chat that came in here. Why is Jake so sure if oil spikes, XRP goes up? I don't really want to address it anymore. Conduct due diligence on everybody. That's all I'm going to say. Andrew Carnegie. Sorry for pronouncing it incorrectly. I also pronounced Edinburgh. I pronounced it wrong the other day. My apologies. I appreciate you guys. Every time I pronounce something incorrect, you guys let me know. And then the way that I have my mic dialed in, sometimes the T's get cut out and the S's slur a little bit. And so my apologies if there is any distortions. I try to do my best to pronunciate all of the words properly. And if I mess up, you guys sure let me know every time. Thank you for that. Crypto Kenny G says, Zach, I love my new hat. Awesome, man. We have some new stuff on the way too. Yeah. Thoughts on Flare? Bullish. Down to 1 penny. Yeah, bullish. I mean, if that thing just goes back to the all-time high that it hit after the mainnet went live at, 9 cents, that's a real opportunity right there. So I'm bullish on Flare. I've been buying it at 2 cents. I may look at buying some here at 1 cent, or 1 cent, I should say. Exactly, Christy. Yeah, go ask the person that put out the prediction. And I'm just gonna leave it at that. I mean, I've said all year it's not going to $1,000. That's all I can say. Is I take it back to the data. We need 100 to 300 billion of inflows to see a $100 XRP minimum. We might even need more inflows. That's like bare minimum. And so, I just said it's not going to happen this year, and that's that. I mean, I've been watching. I mean, there's some backlash, and that's something that he's going to have to deal with. No. I'm not even going to read off your comment. I'm just going to say no. I'm just going to say no. And I'm just sitting back now. I'm sitting back, and we're going to see how it all folds, how it all falls. I'm just sitting back now. We'll let it play out. I've been saying, let all truth be revealed. And I'll leave it at that. Okay. All right, guys. Hey, appreciate everybody for coming by for tonight's update. I hope that you appreciate what we're putting down on a daily basis, just trying to bring real analysis. We're not going to get it right all the time, but we try to do our best. We try to back it up, and we try to allow the regular person to understand what's in front of us, which undoubtedly is the greatest transfer of wealth in world history. I want you guys to win. We're all one XRP family together. whether the market's down, whether it's up. The one thing that we can say is that this is the strongest community in crypto. I love every single one of you guys here that comes and supports the cause, whether you're just liking the video, sharing it out far and wide, or you're supporting us further. We have a lot of ways to support us, and I really do appreciate that. One more super chat came in. Do you think that XRP can reach up to $5 by the end of Q1 or Q2? Absolutely. That is my expectation, is that we get a rally in the beginning of 2026 leading up to the Clarity Act that will take us to a new all-time high for XRP. Buy the rumor, sell the news. And then I'm expecting us to reach even higher prices towards the end of 2026. But I explained and broke it down in today's update. That's why I titled it XRP New Liquidity Coming. That's not me just, hey, let me come up with a hype narrative today. It's backed by real data. And you can either, if you missed it, you can watch this episode back, or I recorded an update today that I'm probably going to drop Thursday morning. That is a 15-minute video, concise, short, to the point, directly addressing XRP, Bitcoin, and crypto versus the liquidity cycle and the business cycle, which is what I broke down in today's update. But that video, I was so happy with how it came out. I think that you guys are going to love it. And this is the type of content that I like to put out. You know, it's similar to the multiplier and the inflows. This is the analysis. This is the data. This is the facts that allow you to have real conviction in your investments. And that's the objective. That's what we're trying to achieve. Marlon, thank you for the super chat. Could the files be the surprise decoupler of XRP from Bitcoin instead of use case? I really think in that scenario, the whole market would come down. I think that it would allow XRP to decouple. But in the event, it's like with a reverse carry trade. If the reverse carry trade unwinds rapidly, XRP is going down. Everything's going down, right? If Tether implodes, everything goes down, right? If the files come in, Bitcoin drops, the entire market's going to go down in that moment. But then we can decouple. What's going to come from the docs this weekend, Friday? We'll see. We'll see if it even drops. The aliens are supposed to show up. The 3IQ, Atlas, Starship, Spaceship, whatever's going on up there. I'm sure they'll put it on the television for us to watch. And I'm going to be buying the alien dip. With that being said, I appreciate everybody for stopping by here tonight. Help us out by liking this video. Share it out far and wide. New interview dropping tomorrow morning at 10 a.m. Eastern with Sal Gaberti, CEO of Tucrium, the first XRP ETF that went live. You're not going to want to miss the insights that he shared with me, and I'm going to be bringing it to you guys tomorrow morning to start off the Wednesday hump day. We'll be back with another update, and we're keeping you guys updated all week here. It's going to be a big one, so stay tuned with us. Thank you for stopping by, and God bless you all. Thank you so much, everybody.